Hi everyone, Kevin from KTech Services here. This is going to be part three of the two-color script. Now, this is for doing for a larger back. So there's different parameters when you do a larger print. So you can kind of follow along and see how it goes here. Okay, so let me go ahead and share my screen here for you. All right, so we got our design shop. I'm going to move myself down here in the corner. Okay, so basically we're going to do the same thing as part two, but we're just going to change a little bit things, the size and everything like that. And we're going to change the stitches as we go because we're doing it for our larger back and everything. So let me go ahead and just go bring up the artwork here that we had before. Okay, so usually this kind of the same as part two, but it's going to be a little bit different in part three. So again, the first thing that I do is I come up to the tree here and I get rid of that graphics list. So now we just have the vector list. Now, again, as I mentioned before too, you can set this up a bunch of different ways. I prefer to just kind of get it in a generic kind of format so I can bring the graphic artwork in. And then from that point, I can go ahead and kind of manipulate it through the stitches. Now that's the way that I prefer to do it. Okay, let's just get started here. So basically, kind of the same as part two, but just a little bit different. So here, I'm just going to select the vector list, and I'm just going to go ahead and say convert. I'm just going to let do stitches. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to enlarge it bigger. So basically, if I select the vector list, it automatically will select both elements, the red and the black. And down here is the size of it actually right now. We're going to increase that to 8 inches. Okay, so we're going to, as long as you have this blue pin, just so you know, that blue pin, push pin, as some people call it, stuff like that. As long as that's pushed in, whatever number you put on either side, the width, the height, it'll adjust it proportionally. If you only want to do one side, just click on it so the blue indent goes off, and then whatever number you put on either side, it's only going to do that side. Okay, so obviously, usually by default, it's always usually set on the blue indent. Okay, so now we have about 8 inches, and we're going to be pretending to put this on the jacket back or something. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and at that size, I'm going to tell it to convert. Okay, and just convert it into stitches. Okay, and get that process done. Let it do its little thing, and voila. And now I'm going to turn off the vector. And the first thing I'm going to do, since black is kind of hard, I'm going to change that to a blue so we can kind of see all that. Okay, so now we have this set up. So things are a little bit different for this size versus the smaller size, the 3.5 inch that we were doing for the smaller version on part two. So if we're doing those back, we can basically do the blue actually in a fill. And I'm just going to do it my way. There are several different ways to do this and stuff like that. And everybody's different, but my years of doing this and stuff, I'm going to put what works for me and stuff like that. Okay. Now, again, some of the tools that you'll see in here and stuff like that, you might not have because I am running Design Shop 11 Professional, which is the highest level. Now, just beware that some of the tools that I use you might not have because of the level that you have. Okay. Now for Design Shop 9, Design Shop 10, it's pretty much soon they're going to be the same, maybe just slightly a little different cosmetics wise in Design Shop 11. Just for FYI. Okay. All right. So let's get started here. So now the thing that I'll do is we gotta adjust the order a little bit because it's still out of order right now how the artwork actually digitized it. So actually, I prefer the K. Now, still, I prefer, especially, I like to do that K first. And then the rest of it can actually be done. You probably can get away with it. Again, it depends what you're sewing on. Realistic, I prefer to do each letter as it goes and stuff like that. But in this example, I'll go ahead and the EVIN, I'll connect and then do the outline. Should be okay. But if you run into a lot of pulling situations, stuff like that, you're going to have to set it up per letter. Okay, so I'm just going to move this K up one, and then I'm going to take the K of the outline up here. I'm actually going to show it in a different way. I'm going to actually set this up, and then I'm going to show you what I usually do. Usually, I can kind of set this up. I'm going to undo that one quick, and then keep it the way it is. And then, I would hold down, I clicked on number three with my mouse, like shift key on my keyboard, and then I click on number eight. Now I basically have all eight of them selected. Then I can right click on it and go to properties. And now what I'm doing is I'm going to adjust because it's going to save me time. So I'm going to turn that off, turn auto off. I usually like about 3.5. Kind of depends on the color. Now that's me. Now, of course, if you do auto density, probably about 95 and um, probably about 95 on the auto density. If you do, in this case, I'm going to use standard points in this example here. Now, if it was going to be like white or something like that in the inside of the blue, then I'd probably go about 3.3, maybe even a little bit more. You'll have to kind of judge what works best for you. I'm going to do a 3.3. We're still going to put a decent underlay in this. Now, the thing that's nice about what we're doing here on all these highlighted is we're doing all of them, all the blue, the K, the V. Sorry, the K, the E, the V, the I, and the N are all doing it at the same time here. Okay, so and then on an underlay, I'm going to turn off auto, and then I'm just gonna use one. And I like a tight border, 6 points, and what that means is 6 points to the border. It's basically going to do this underlay. Now everybody's now the density that's awfully high. That to me that's not going to really do anything. 15, and the angle I do change to about 90. Now the stitch length I do about 40. That's 4 millimeters. I want a good loft stitch to cover the letter and stuff like that. That's when the main. That's just now. This is the underlay. Now when the main fill goes over it, it'll cover it really nicely and stuff like that. I found this really works out really well. Now, if you're working with materials that are really more difficult and stuff like that, you might have to put more. That's where I might do a crisscross fill and stuff like that, and kind of do a kind of a crisscross. You know, right now it's just doing one, but maybe sometimes you could do a cross. But in this case, I'm just going to do that. That should be fine. Now the compensation. Now usually it's set to 2. Now I do default to 8 on the minimum stitch, but that's 2 points higher. That should be fine. But again, you know, I probably you can go up to 4. It's just going to be the border edge of this where this is going to come into play. So the more you adjust that, it's going to increase that. Now, of course, this is going to pull about 1 to 1.5 times less as it really is when it really stitches. Okay, so sometimes you just want a little extra coverage and stuff like that. See how that? Well, now it's really that's going to be fine. Okay, you'll have to kind of experiment what works for you, and it all kind of depends what kind of fabric you're actually going to be sewing this on. So okay, so I already I do will check. Oops, I just want to go back into there real quick. Make sure. Well, I usually like 8. I do 3. This is kind of my thing on the lock stitch. Make sure these are set right. I usually like 8, and I just make sure that it both has 3 on there on the type 1 lock stitches. Okay, excellent. And then I'll go over here to the red. Now this is all going to still be satin, but we're out of order a little bit. But we're going to set that later. But right now I'm just setting the stitch parameters. Okay. So I'm going to click on number 9. I'm going to hold the shift key down, do number 15. That selects all of them. Right click, go to properties, and now turn off auto. Make sure it says satin. Probably still about 95. Actually, no, we're going to, in this case, about 3.7 to 3.6. I do turn off the automatic fill parameters. 0 disables that. I want this to be a satin no matter what. Um, Now the underlay, I'm going to turn off auto. This is awfully big, so I'm definitely gonna do a zigzag. Now absolute and percentage do the same thing, but I found percentage still kind of where that percentage is sort of old school. Absolute's kind of the new way of doing things. I more partial to percentage. I've seen some weird things with absolute, but if absolute works good for you, you keep on doing it. Okay. I usually do about 70%, and the density I do about 12. Kind of depends what I'm doing, but not on a jacket back at least 12. That's a good combination that I do, and now everybody's different. Again, you find you have a better number, you go for it, and you go ahead and enter that. But that's what I usually do there. On the conversation, I still make sure that the minimum's 8. Now that's a 2 extra point border. Now the percentage and the point offset is the same thing. There's I think at the math right it's about a point 0.3 difference from percentage and points. So you kind of have to. I kind of got grown on the points on this one and stuff like that. And as you see here, it'll increase just a little bit more. Now remember, whatever you see on the screen is going to be 1 to 1.5 times less from actual what you see on the screen. So three is a good one. I can go four. It really doesn't matter. I particularly like fat letters, fat stitching, or really a good column. But actually, I think three is actually the right number. Okay, look, it looks good there. And a lot of times, what I'll do is I'll zoom in on here a little bit to kind of see with the coverage. And we got a lot of extra coverage and stuff like that, so we shouldn't pull off at all, or that should not come out of registration. Okay. So now I'm going to make sure you save your work and stuff like that. Um, so you have all that. So in case something happens. So so now we got to kind of set up the stitches. We got this. We got the density and all that kind of stuff. So everything's out of order really right now because we definitely want the K um, to start first. Let's fix that right now. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to move. I'm going to drag the move and drop it. Okay, now it's going to do the K. I'm still going to do the outline right after it on this one. So basically, it's going to sew the blue and then sew the red on this one. Now, granted, we have a gap problem here, and we'll have to fix that. But right now, I'm just going to fixing the order right now. Don't worry about these auto trims; they'll go away as we fix this and stuff like that. So then the next thing is, and then what we're going to have to kind of do here is kind of kern this a bit. There's a couple of ways we can kind of cheat here a little bit. The E is actually in the right position, but the VIN isn't. So you can actually draw an imaginary box that should select all of them like it did. Sometimes it, nope, it's actually it didn't. No, we don't want that. So we want these three. So you can hold the shift key down and hit that. And then of course the control key is actually select and deselect. Okay, so we actually want all this. Let's see here. Let's just go. Actually, I'm just going to delete those. Just it helps me a little bit. Okay, so obviously the I is in the wrong position. We want that to be last, but we're going to fix that. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to move the E, and then let's do the V second drag and drop, and then the I drag and whoops. You gotta drag it and then to get the fist and then basically yeah it's kind of tricky sometimes and then the end we're going to do the dot last in this case. Okay, and then um yeah, then we'll do that and then okay, then we could do and get that I done, that's fine. And then we can move over and do the rest of it. This actually would work. I think this will work out fine. Of course, we're just going to have to change a couple things on sewing order and stuff like that. But I want to get the sewing process. That's fine. And then we can actually change that. That's fine. And then okay. This is the good sewing mark. This is how we're going to have it sewn. So I'm going to make sure I save my work on the K. Okay, now we need to change a couple things. Let's just go ahead and fix the K. So I'm going to zoom in on the K a little bit with my zoom key a little bit. And now, of course, we got all this. I prefer it to end here. And then make sure, again, as you do this, watch the cursor, make sure it changes. And I'm going to actually change that to right in the middle there. So it starts right there. I don't like my starts to start on the edge. I like always to start in the middle there. Now, oh wow, we got some problems here. So we have to kind of fix all this a little bit because it didn't actually compute over very well. So we're going to turn off the red here so I can see things. Oh no, actually we're going to need that. So we got a little too many nodes here, and I'm pretty sure that's what the problem is. There we go. And then I'm going to move that in a little bit more. So the problem is it's got a little too many nodes in here. And it kind of threw off things a little bit. And you have to kind of get, there we go. And then see, if you hold the shift key down, even though that's a curve, I can hold my shift key down and actually change that to a straight. And actually what I'm going to do there is I'm going to add another one. So you have to kind of do, and this is where my other videos that I'm going to be kind of explaining of how to edit this, because not always the auto process does it right. Now, will it sew? It probably will sew just fine. Not in that case. It's not because the busy. Well, that's it. I'm just kind of basically talking as I kind of straighten out here a little bit, but you have to kind of fix the stitches a little bit in a lot of cases, and that's where my other videos are going to come into play to kind of fix all this. And let's see here, and we just want it to be um, this is a line direction, and we can do it just like that. Now it looks good. Okay, I like that. Sometimes on the splits and stuff, I go to the advanced tab. Um, I'd usually put an extra point in each one of these, so it just gives a little extra. There's a split right here. Oops, went too far. And it just to cover it a little bit better. I just kind of did that. All right. Let's just look. Let's look in 3D. Okay, so looking good. Looking good. Now you can change the direction a little bit in this case, but usually you're always angle out of 45 for doing any kind of stuff. You know that we're not doing anything inside of it. Now, if I was putting like a couple of letters in here, let's say, I definitely would make sure that fill was at a 45, which it is right now. It might look better at a 90 kind of thing. You'll have to kind of experiment, see what works good for you. But usually in this case, I'll do a 45. And that's pretty good. All right. So in this case, we are actually done with the K. The K is done. Okay. Now, the rest of the stuff, to kind of make sure all this kind of, we need to kind of move the V, the I, and the N. We need to move all that kind of over. Now, there's a couple ways of doing this. You could get away with this by drawing an imaginary box and then hopefully select all the functions. And I actually, okay, no, let's see. Did it do? Yeah, actually, I did it right. Okay, so yeah, because that this part and let's see, number 13, number 15 are actually part of the E, and that's fine. At this point, I like using the keyboard. You can grab it and kern it, but I'll click it one time. That kind of activates the kerning process of the keyboard. And shift and ones, and I'm just going to move that a little bit closer where that E, actually where right here touches a little bit more. I'm going to move it a little bit more right there. Okay, and however you like it. Now, you can kind of do a couple different things. You can click off it, and then you can do the same thing again, and then just kind of imaginary box that. Hopefully, you get it. But if not, in this case, you got to select the blue and the green. So in this case, I would select blue, and of course you got to do the dot. So the control key, you have to hold down the control key, and that's so now I got both blues. I got the dot of the blue here and the I. Now I got to do the red, and so that would be number 11, and then that would be right here number 17. So now I have this thing. Well, that's no shoot. That actually just for that, you have to kind of do the end now, and that would be now I have everything selected. Or again, if you in this case you can get away with it, you can actually whoops, yeah, you got to get that box just right, and it should select both of them. But if not, let's see, go in and then in and dot. Let's see, dot. And no, that's the E. So I got to do the okay. So I and then control key. We're gonna do the N, and we're gonna do that. I'm gonna do that, and we're gonna do that and that. There we go. And then I can click on it again. Okay, and then I can use my shift key, and that should move that over a little bit. Perfect. Um, Now, if you know, you can basically go and deselect it with the control key. I'm gonna just deselect. Okay, and we'll say anything deselect. Now I have just the end highlighted. So same thing, I can click on it till it goes to hollow nodes, and then I could just kind of move it over. You can do Shift arrow or Shift control does that's 100. Shift Alt is tens, but then Shift ones are just there we go, right there. Okay, so I have a little better flow that it kind of connects a little bit. And what I'm trying to do here is now we need to kind of tie this all in together. I'm going to make sure, not notes, sorry. I'm going to go ahead and hit save as. Okay, so we save my work here. Okay, so now, as I mentioned before, depending on polling, we might get away with it. We should be able to do this. If it becomes a problem, then you'll have to do each letter or each do the blue and then the red over each letter. But not, we're just going to go ahead and do this a straight shot. So I'm going to move this to the middle now. And the end is here is fine. Um, So let's see, and then the V. Okay, we're gonna start there. So that's fine. That's fine. And then the N, we are gonna change that. We're gonna move that over to there. And then from here, it's gonna move up to here. And then we're gonna move that, and it really doesn't matter. We're gonna change the fill, or the fill direction. Okay, I wanna make sure I save that. Okay, so now what we need to do, in this case, I'm gonna turn off the red so I can kind of see everything. And we're gonna usually change this to all, each of the letters here, turn on the line direction, and you can keep it the way you want or do it at a 45, how you want to do it. Oops, and then make sure you turn on line direction. And there we go. And then we're gonna do the same thing here. Um, that looks good there. That's better. Okay, so we got a line direction that we want. Oh, we got to do this one too. See, that one's not right. There we go. Okay. Now, let's turn on the satin, and we're gonna basically now. Let's see that. So basically, we do the blue, and then we stop. So where's the last? Okay. Oh, we stop. Okay, we actually should stop up here because we're doing the direction. I always like less splits if I can do it, if I can avoid it. So we're going to move this up to here because we're on the red now. And it doesn't matter where we kind of end about this because it's going to trim anyway. And we're going to go to last. Okay, so the I is pretty much done. So now it's going to move over to here to the E. Let's go ahead and start here and end here. We probably can get away with that, but if you, yeah, in this case, we can trim it. It's not gonna be a big deal here. Um, and then, oops, good, didn't click the E right. Okay, so we're gonna basically start from here and end here. Okay, nice and good. And then now the V, and then we're gonna start here and end here. Okay, and now the I. That's great. That's perfect. I'm happy with that. Let's move down a little bit more. Now we have a splice here. That's fine. In this case, I can almost get rid of that. So I don't know. I think it flows better sometimes. You just have to kind of find out what works best for you. I can have it end here, which is fine. Start and yeah, then we're done. Okay. Um, so let's just watch this play out. I'm going to speed it up a little bit to like 12, and it's going to do a nice underlay. I use this tool a lot to make sure how my stuff is flowing and stuff. And it's going to do a nice fill to cover the inside. And let's speed it up a little bit. All right. So, and then I'll slow it down when it gets to the video. So basically, I'll bring it down to 15. Okay, so now it's going to do a nice zigzag around the edge. You kind of find out what works best for you and stuff like that, but that's what usually we'll kind of do a good coverage. And it's doing a nice little, cover all the outline there. Okay. And then in this case, then it's going to do all the blue first, so the EVIN in this case, how we did it. Now again, if you have some polling issues and stuff like that, you'll have to change it where you do each letter and stuff. But you could pretty much follow what I did there to kind of make that happen. Voila. Okay, and then it's doing the N and the I, and then it's going to go ahead and do the outline. Start doing the outline now. This way, and of course, the way that I set this up too and stuff like that, you eliminate a lot of trims. You try to avoid trims, even though depending on the trimmer system you have, it it work to save time. I mean, if you do a little creative digitizing that we're doing now, you eliminate a lot of trims, and voila, we're done. So about 20,000 stitches at 8 inches by 2.768, and that's actual size right there. And there you go. That would be ready to put on your back of your jacket with no problem, with a nice fill and a nice satin stitch outline. And from setting it up in CorelDRAW, to the end results and stuff like that. And then obviously part two is just for the small version if you're doing right chest, left chest, or every right chest side name drop and stuff like that. In this case, this is actually a back of a jacket or something like that you were doing, etc. Okay, that's this part three. Stay tuned for the next one. We'll be doing more of these as we go. Thank you for watching.